Hello, this is Danny Raymond, the voice behind Ray's Guide. Well, Invictus is over, and it is important to talk about it from a standpoint of what lessons can be drawn from it, both in terms of the event itself and perhaps also the first 5 months of this year. And from a financial standpoint, the ILW was a banger. May revenue, just wrapping up, is going to be the largest May ever and was preceded by 4 months that also matched or exceeded any other prior same month. Which brings me to lesson 1, which I did not expect, and that is stability sells. When CIG announced that this year they were going to focus tightly on increased stability and on content, I speculated that it might suppress pledge revenue. Well, that is proving to be unfounded. Now, you might say that it is the content that is selling, and the content that they have been coming up with is mostly quite good. But they have tried to sell content such as Siege of Orison, and it has had problems with stability. Now that won't last forever. At some point, the demand for things that have been promised for 1.0 is going to return, and we'll be seeing the tech preview build soon on crafting. And then there is the second lesson. The future wasn't sold. Which, on the subject of the future, this was a very unusual fleet week, and that there were no new concept ships. Not only that, but there was no holo haul to show off the concept ships that they had already made. CIG has decided that following all the negative publicity that still-in concept ships are in fact a liability. Bear in mind the Atlas IKTI we know is already in the PTU for the next release. How easy would it have been to announce them as in final development and sell a gazillion of them? Which turns me to item 3, the new show floor. There were quite a few major changes to the show floor. The first was that rather than having to go to the ships to rent them, all the ships were able to be rented on a particular day were available at a set of kiosks at the entrance. The other major change was that the show floor did not change day to day. Let me discuss my impressions about those. I liked the convenience of having just one place to do rentals. However, I found the unchanging show floor boring. There were just too few ships shown. Many manufacturers did not have even a single ship on the show floor for the entire week. Once you had made the rounds on the first day you were there was no reason to go any further than the foyer. So if CIG is thinking of doing the same thing for the IAE show later this year, here is what I'm going to suggest. Don't make the IAE in just one location. For example, in the Tobin Expo Center, have all the mining and salvage ships, then at Bevik have all the cargo ships, and then at Lorville have all the armed security and bounty hunting ships, etc. This will not only give the ability to see more ships side by side, but also spread out all the players around all the servers, which is, of course, helpful with server balancing. Which, on the subject of balancing, let's turn to the elephant in the room, which is the huge issue about the sale of server blades for flight characteristics. And most of the folks so intent on clicks for outrage made this an issue of CIG trying to sell everything, when it is in fact more a matter of balancing the types of sales. And there are two types of sales. The first is selling you on the game, and the second is selling you on spending money on improving your game. In other words, one is selling you on an expenditure of time, and the other is selling you on an expenditure of money. Both of these sales are genuinely sales and use all of the tools and skills of the marketing pro. And you can argue which is more important, but what is undeniable is that you have to make the one type of sale before you can make the other, because nobody spends money on a game they just don't play anymore. So, for example, Callaway spent a ton of money on buying and expanding Topgolf, not so much because it would be hugely profitable, which it failed at, but also because it would make golfing exciting to new players at a time when golf courses were closing for lack of players, resulting in Callaway selling more golf clubs and other gear, which it succeeded at. So the real flaw of the blades was that not that CIG marketing was trying to sell them, but because it was trying for the wrong type of sale. If they had placed the same energy on promoting the idea of customization and in greater depth of the game, the reaction would have been entirely positive. On the other hand, we know that in the current PTU, the Atlas IKTI is available from Wicklow, and I once raised the idea in chat that maybe CIG was going to make it exclusively available through Wicklow. In other words, this type of sale. And the primary reaction I got was, I hope not. This is the ultimate shut up and take my money item. In other words, they genuinely wanted the Atlas IKTI to be this type of sale and would be disappointed if it wasn't. And as they were complaining about a $15 set of blades with minuscule alterations in performance, they were cheering the sale of $2,000 beat-everything machines. And how do you make a sense of that? You make a sense of it with the oldest adage in sales, know your audience. And in doing so, I am going to borrow a term that is mostly used for political analysis, the Overton Window. The Overton Window is a range of behaviors considered acceptable by public figures in a society. Part of the concept of the Overton Window is that it is unique to a particular society and changes over time, although such changes tend to be traumatic. And the subset of players and backers of Star Citizen is a different society than the players of other games and even other MMOs, one in which charging thousands of dollars for a win-everything ship or charging thousands for a ship that will only provide you with an inferior loaner for years is outside of the Overton Window, and charging a few dollars for a minor technical improvement is considered inside. Well, when it came to server blades, the initial objectors, such as Avenger 1, Salty Mike, and Morphologist, knew in their guts that what had happened was that the Overton Window of the community was being exceeded, that minor performance alteration items, military-grade shields and engines, for example, had never been something that we had to pay for, and always something we had to earn or find in the game, as had been a different type of missile or missile rack, such as the ones that had bombs and not missiles. And that is the Overton Window for the Star Citizen community as it has been evolving ever since the original Kickstarter in 2013, that promised that people at the $5,000 level would get all of the 5 original ships, plus, drumroll, the Idris P. Yes, that is how long the Idris P has been in concept and how long the idea of paying for the biggest ships has been. And for all that time, people outside of the Star Citizen community have thought that we were crazy, and maybe we are, but it does have its own internal consistency. It's going to take you years of gameplay to buy a $2,000 Idris, but only about an hour to afford a $45 land vehicle. Maybe the huge ship makes more sense on a $1 per hour of advancement bypassed. So within the social group of the Star Citizen community, the outrage wasn't so much that the blades were a bad deal, which they were. Since why pay for a pack of 2 blades when your ship is only going to be able to use 1, and most certainly you're going to like the way your ship behaves with one and thus would hate the way it behaves with the other, and might not even like either of them. So buying the bundle, just like paint bundles, was not likely wise. It would be a rare player, perhaps just racers, that would be switching out blades on a mission-by-mission basis. But the real concern was that it was a shifting of the Overton Window, and that having done so, almost everything was now available for this type of sale, and that there'd be almost nothing making that type of sale, even though that would be a very foolish thing to do, since, as I pointed out, you need to make this sale first. I'm not sure why they made that mistake. Maybe they have further plans for other blades that won't fit the description of being similar to other ship components, but they need to listen to the community and never presume that what is the acceptable range of behavior in other MMOs is the same as the acceptable range of behavior for Star Citizen. The Star Citizen community has taken a very different road to get here, and that has had big effects on the various things that fit into the fundraising picture. There are areas where we can be pushed pretty hard, such as ships, but as a result, there are other areas, like these blades, where we won't accept it. But there is actually something much bigger likely going on in the marketing department of CIG, and that as development teams are putting the finishing polish on Squadron 42, marketing is needing to make their own big decisions about it. How to package and price Squadron 42. Because single-player games have a different Overton window than MMOs, and even within the Star Citizen community, is their Overton window different between Squadron and the persistent universe. And I will give one specific area where it is. Expansion packs. In the realm of single-player games, having expansion packs is not only considered acceptable to the user community, but accepted to the point that not announcing that there will be expansion packs is suspicious that the game is not expected to have a long lifespan. And based on trademark registrations, I am already expecting that the first expansion pack of Squadron will be announced and called Soul Singer. And that mindset also is present in MMOs, where long-lived MMOs like WoW and EverQuest regularly produce expansion packs. But here is where the Overton window for Star Citizen is not like the typical MMO. Because so much has been promised over the years, to find that those things locked behind an expansion pack purchase is completely unacceptable. So some things that might be considered quite normal in other MMOs, for example, having a Nyx expansion pack, would be considered way beyond the pale in the Star Citizen community. We've been promised 100 star systems and asked to settle for just 5. But to then say that the star systems will cost more would trigger mass protest. Similar, an attempt to have a crafting expansion pack, or a base building expansion pack, or a data running expansion pack would be intolerable to the Star Citizen community, even though comparable MMOs might be able to do such a thing with impunity. The Star Citizen community has evolved to understand that we might be sold on paying to have the ship to do these activities or go to those places, but to then also have to pay for the actual place to go or the thing to do is beyond the pale. Those things have to stay in the realm of selling us on an expenditure of time. And now for an update on our giveaways. First, we have the video contest that I just recently announced, with the reward of being either the amazing all-encompassing Assault Lander, the Asgard, or the terrifying tactical terrier, the Starlancer TAC. Look at the referenced video or the contest rules on that. Then we have our regular IAE Week giveaway for the shiny stainless steel series shipping ship, the Starlancer Max, and then the Grow the Channel ship giveaway for the winner's choice of the marvelous multi-role mining meta, the Arasta, and the brand new Big Box Bargain Bazaar, the Merchantman. 1 entry per video for those 2 drawings. Be a member for automatic entry with each video, or just subscribe and comment with the secret word. And the secret word for this video is the Overton what? Fly safe, keep it real, and I'll see you in the verse. This is Daniel Raymond for Ray's Guide.